It'll take a few seconds to connect, but if I'm on early, hello everybody and welcome to Uncut History. Just gotta get confirmation that we're live. All right, we're live. Today's been a bit of a hectic day, actually the past few days have been hectic, and not for the reason you think, and we will be getting to those reasons, but for me, tech problems. So, you probably have seen me make mention in passing in the past few months in videos on here at Redot Productions. I've been doing just about everything off of a smartphone. I am not exaggerating. My main laptop went down back in September, so I had to dust off Old Reliable over here. And while Old Reliable's good surfing the internet, trying to do anything semi-important is just gonna make the whole laptop go brrr. And especially the past few weeks, it's been struggling. And to make matters worse this week, it seems that the router in the house is going, as all of us are struggling to connect to the internet. So cross your fingers that we do not get disconnected before the stream's over. Now, I don't like talking about current issues on this channel. When anything with current issues, you have a bias. You're experiencing it. You have a personal perspective of what's happening. And I don't want to turn this into a channel about my own personal politics. Otherwise, you'll all eventually get bored. Promise. Even if you would agree with me, you're eventually going to get bored. But as you're probably aware, in the past 2 weeks, a major calamity has ensued in the railroad community. And that, of course, is the derailment that just transpired in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, I was first aware of this the night of the incident. I'm on a couple Facebook pages that we're all rail fans. We like to go photograph trains, and we try to update each other when a train's passing through our area. And right before I went to sleep on February the 3rd, I started seeing messages that, hey, there's a train down just on the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. I really didn't think much of it because, I gotta be honest, derailments have been happening at a ridiculous level, especially in the past couple years. It wasn't until Tuesday that I started seeing photos of this giant plume of smoke rising from East Palestine, looked like Mount St. Helens. And then I realized that we're dealing with more than just a minor derailment. Now, the mainstream medias really haven't seemed to have been wanting to cover this until this current week. And now everybody's acting like this derailment just occurred. So that was rubbing me a long way. So I decided for this episode of Uncut History, we would try to go through and, as best as I can, build a timeline of events. So keep in mind, this is still an active situation occurring in East Palestine, Ohio. Information is constantly coming in that's contradicting earlier reports. So I've tried my best to thoroughly put together what happened. So without any further ado, let's go back to the evening of February 3rd, 2023. Let me scroll up here. So, East Palestine is a relatively small community, inches from the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. It's ridiculous how close it is to there. Nope. I don't know what happened. It just went down. Oh, we're back. Like I said, internet router's dying. I'm going to try to get a new one tomorrow. Anyways, East Palestine is a small community in Ohio, right on the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. Population about 4,800 people. The rail line that goes through the heart of East Palestine is part of the Fort Wayne line, which is owned at this time by Norfolk Southern, which is one of the largest railroad companies here in the United States. Now, just before 9 p.m. on Friday, February 3rd, Norfolk Southern train known as 23N, or my apologies, 32N, was making its way from Madison, Illinois, on its way to Conway, Pennsylvania. This is a daily train. This particular evening, it consisted of 3 locomotives manned by a crew of 3 individuals. It had approximately 150 cars, 141 loaded cars, including 20 cars that contained hazardous material, as well as 9 empty cars. Now, more recently, we've been seeing surveillance video in East Palestine of this train going through with a fireball underneath. It appears that one of the axles gave way and the whole train started to come apart. The crew in the cab of the train got notice first from what is known as a wayside defect detector. Every so many miles, there's one of these located along the rails, and it has this most boring noise. I sometimes pick it up on my scanner when photographing trains. It'll be like, mile post blah, blah, blah. Should say no defects. Said the opposite. Immediately after, the emergency brakes were applied, and that's when the derailment occurred. Officially, 38 cars came off the tracks and were derailed. The entire line of cars was about a half mile long. What we also found was, I shouldn't say we, what I've researched and other people found, that later on, 12 more cars in the consist caught on fire. The locomotives were not involved in the derailment. Keep in mind, this occurred farther in the rear of the train. 10 of the hazardous cars were part of the derailment, and a fire broke out. That fire went for almost a half mile in length. Now, almost immediately after, your emergency authorities were called, and as we go into the early morning hours of Saturday, February 4th, it's believed that 68 emergency agencies from Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia responded to the situation. Now, you might be asking, those are free whole states there. Why are there free states converging? It's not just at the Ohio and Pennsylvania border. It is also very close to the northern tip of West Virginia. So this is a tri-state area, and as you're going to learn watching the live stream, all these areas are equally impacted, even if it did not occur in their vicinity at this time. So we got all sorts of fire trucks on the scene in early morning of February 4th. Norfolk Southern's hazmat team is on this location. Ohio's chapter of the EPA has arrived. It is very cold, reportedly during the firefighting, with temperatures only around 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't have problems getting the water pumped out of the fire hydrants, but the trucks are struggling to get the water loaded up. And at the same time, they're dealing with quite the mess. We're not just talking about simple wood on fire. We're dealing with unknown chemicals in this half-mile long ball of flames. Now, something also to keep in mind is where this occurred. It occurred in a major residential area. Now, granted, it's a small population, but there's houses all around where the wreck occurred. And I found out that in the early morning hours of Saturday, one of the residents of East Palestine, a lady by the name of Melissa Henry, decided that when she saw the ball of flames, she made a right decision to get out of town because her son's eyes were, as she quoted, were becoming red as tomatoes. And he was also coughing. So keep that in mind. We already have people suffering from the effects of all these chemicals burning off, and we're not even to the evacuation orders, which everybody knows about, which come around 6:30 a.m. Now, keep in mind, we're now Saturday, February 4th. Mayor Trent Conaway calls for a mandatory evacuation of a mile radius around the immediate crash site. He's unsure of what chemicals are exactly burning. That involves about 1,500 to 2,000 residents of East Palestine. Oh. Okay, we're reconnected. Again, sorry about the connection issues, folks. We're going to try to work on that in the future. But where were we? 9:30 a.m. State emergency is declared. There's a no-fly zone over most of East Palestine. I'm trying to make sure things are working. And by Sunday, February 5th, the reports are that the fire has reduced in intensity, but it's persisting. There still are flames. Now, this is where things get interesting. So we have the flames are starting to dip out, and wasn't able to fully to confirm how much the fire departments were involved with containing the flames, as some reports say they weren't allowed in the immediate vicinity because of the uncertainty of what type of chemicals they were dealing with. I mean, you probably heard a story, you don't throw water on a grease fire for dealing with something like that here. So on Sunday, February 5th, reports start coming in that one of the overturned cars is showing a drastic change in temperature, and that indicates that pressure is building. Now, I'm pretty confident all of the hazardous material were in tanker cars, at least from what I see in the photos. Almost everything seemed to be tanker cars, and that would make sense. We're dealing with liquid chemicals. When these tanker cars are designed, and if they are derailed, that you probably notice in the top, a lot of tanker cars, there's like a hatch looking thing. There is kind of a valve that is pressure based, that if enough pressure of the chemicals pushes on a valve, it'll automatically begin releasing. And I was working on at least one of the tankers, but on a couple other of them, the valves had malfunctioned and the pressure is reported to be rising. So this is where everybody kind of knows the whole story of the East Palestine train wreck, is that by Monday, February 6th, around 4:40 p.m., news reporters hear a massive explosion near the train wreck, and moments later, a plume of black smoke is rising. So, what was this? Is this a second wreck? Is this a second explosion? The official report is, their official statement is that the authorities that are in charge of the crash scene came to the decision that with all the different chemicals that were in the tankers, that it would be best to burn them. So at this time, the one chemical that was being reported was vinyl chloride, and vinyl chloride is used purely to make PVC, so your PVC piping. And while PVC itself, there's been a debate with the EPA the past couple years if it should be considered a hazardous material. Yes, your PVC that's in your basements right now, the piping, is being disputed if it is a hazardous material or not. VC definitely is hazardous. When VC burns, you're going to have hydrogen chloride, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and possibly phosphagen gas being produced. And phosphagen gas we used as a chemical weapon during the First World War. Keep that in mind. Humans used phosphagen gas in the First World War. The reason they decided to burn off these VC from the tankers was to prevent an explosion. They were worried that it would build up in the tanker and cause an explosion within a square mile radius and cause shrapnel all over the place. Now, this is where I really hem-haw, and again, I'm no chemist. I admit I'm a rail buff, but once those chemicals touch the ground, I throw my hands up. But why would burning it be like the best solution? Granted, you have drastic temperature and it's like, oh, this is going to pop. But from what I'm gathering, at least from the reports I've read, they noticed Sunday is when the drastic temperature build up, and the decision to blow open the tanker and light the chemicals on fire isn't until late Monday afternoon. Couldn't they thought of a better solution to release the chemicals and contain them in some way on the ground? Granted, then I'm sure you have a whole lot of problems of it seeping into the ground. But in either case, they made a decision to dig a little trench, pour out the chemicals, light them up, and that is the big plume of smoke you're seeing in all the photographs. It's not from the fire from the initial wreck. It is from them burning off these chemicals. Now, while they were doing this, all the authority figures are, that's terrifying. The authority figures are reported to be monitoring the air quality to see what the chemicals go right, and they report only seeing small to moderate levels of hydrogen chloride and phosphagen. They're not talking about what they would deem as severe. On the same day, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, the Columbiana County Emergency Management Agency said it was improbable that the chemicals would spill into the water sources in nearby Sulphur Run. And this is where I need to bring up the water systems around East Palestine. There's a little tiny stream that runs right through the heart of East Palestine. It actually goes under the Fort Wayne line of Norfolk Southern. This will empty into what is known as Leslie's Run. Then Leslie's Run flows south into what's known as Bull Creek, or Bull Run. I think it's Bull Creek because Bull Run's a battlefield. In any case, it'll eventually empty into Little Beaver Creek. And Little Beaver Creek... Okay, I'm back on. I don't know if you saw in the comments, I posted, I'm like, well, at least gives me time to drink and recompose my thoughts. I guess there's one good thing for glitches. All right. Anyways, so we're on Monday, February 6th. Governor DeWine by now has begun addressing Ohio about what's occurring in the region. So we move to Tuesday, February 7th, and residents of Columbiana County and Pennsylvania's Beaver County, which borders Columbia County, are urged to remain indoors. Officials are detecting elevated readings of phosphagen hydrogen chloride in the burn area, but not much beyond. No chemicals are reported being found by the Ohio EPA. But at the same time, 10 miles north of East Palestine in North Lima, a lady by name of, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Amanda Brashears, reports finding 5 hens and a rooster dead in her backyard. She went back and watched her security footage that shows the chickens. They're fine all Monday night, and then early Tuesday morning they drop dead. And this is within hours after the chemical burn-off occurred. Meanwhile, the Ohio EPA have claimed they've successfully controlled the runoff of the chemicals. We also get reports this time of dead fish turning up in Leslie Run, in Bull Creek, and if my talk about waterways is still surviving before the glitch occurred, you know that all these waters will find their way into the Ohio River. And the Ohio River, for those that are not familiar with the geography of my tri-state area, the Ohio River is what creates the northern panhandle of West Virginia. So one side you have West Virginia, one side the Ohio. This is why you got free states involved in this situation. This impacts Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Those are the primary free states impacted by this situation. And I don't think it doesn't take much of a rocket scientist to know that the Ohio River empties into the Mississippi River. So we have dead fish reported. In fact, the news reporters were able to spot and pick out the dead fish as they're reporting. So you can see this with the naked eye. And at the same time, we're also getting reports from a Taylor Hulser that his family runs a fox sanctuary right on the limit, the evacuation limit, that one fox died soon after the wreck. The rest of the foxes on the sanctuary are having various ailments of improper eating, puffy faces, stomach issues, lethargy, and watery eyes. None of them are healthy. This lets us roll into Wednesday, February 8th. Norfolk Southern has cleaned up all the wreckage off the tracks. They've pushed it off to the side, and they have put in new track. And by February 8th, the trains are running again. Okay, we're back. You know, the first time I ever have live stream connection issues is when I decided to talk about current events. Anyways, so we get to Wednesday, February 8th. Norfolk Southern has reopened trains through East Palestine. The residents of East Palestine are none too enthused. Very quick turnaround from wreck to cleanup. All right, we're back again. I wonder, before I continue, I'm just going to turn my computer off. And now I can't turn my computer off. This is why people become conspiracy theorists. I hope you know that. All this weird stuff happens at the right time. Not saying that it's all conspiracy, but it does make you wonder. Just turn the Wi-Fi off. That'll work. Okay. The press conference on Wednesday, February 8th. At the same time that the evacuation is declared over, a correspondent of News Nation by the name of Evan Lambert is arrested on account of trespassing, and this also made big headlines. So whatever Lambert and his co-workers state happened, they were expecting the press conference to go on about 2 hours earlier. Governor DeWine was late to the press conference, and just when DeWine was beginning to talk, Lambert had to go live on News Nation. So he starts going live, and Lambert's at the far end of this auditorium. He's not anywhere near the stage. But East Palestine police, or at least what I presume is local police, move forward to Lambert, tell him he got to stop talking now. He complies, and then they handcuff him and drag him out of this auditorium. Now, later on, Governor DeWine would denounce this arrest. He does not want the First Amendment infringed. But if the guy had complied, why do you have to put him in handcuffs and then take him to jail for 5 hours? That, I have no answer for that, folks. I don't have any answer for that. But East Palestine, by Wednesday, February 8th, the evacuation's over. Residents return. Many are reporting various smells. And now I did some research. Vinyl chloride, apparently when it burns, it has like almost a sweet odor. I don't know if anybody can confirm that to me. I haven't seen anybody referring to a sweet odor from those who complain. If you're complaining of an odor, I don't think it's going to be a sweet odor. So we have people complaining. And several hundred residents have already requested for air quality tests to be done within their houses. The requests are going off the charts. They are not trusting what the government is saying for them. And eventually we get to February 10th, which is last Friday. And this is where a lot of interesting things come out. So we get a letter that's made public on this day. The EPA notified Norfolk Southern that they had failed to dispose of the contaminated soil. What essentially the EPA is claiming that Norfolk Southern did not properly remove the waste. That instead of going in and thoroughly picking up every last bit of chemical on the rail bed in the immediate vicinity, that they buried it. They put new ballast over a new track. That's what the EPA is claiming in its letter. And I do have a link to that letter in the comments below. I want to make sure I'm still live. Maybe I shouldn't have turned off my internet. That maybe wasn't the smartest idea. Hold on, folks. Just bear with me. I just want to make sure I'm still live, because I turned the computer's Wi-Fi off so I can use more Wi-Fi on my phone. But then okay, I'm still live. I'm still live. Okay. All is well with the world. Okay. Moving forward. Moving on. So the EPA notified Norfolk Southern in a letter claiming they'd failed to dispose of the contaminated soil. So there's contaminated soil underneath the rail bed, is at least how I'm visualizing this. I could be mistaken. They also report to Norfolk Southern that vinyl chloride is expected to be highly mobile in soil and may leak into groundwater. And remember earlier when we had authorities telling us that the reconnected. EPA also listed additional chemicals that were in the cars on this train wreck. And I'm going to mispronounce all of these. I am so sorry. I am a rail buff. I am not a chemist. They consisted of ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, ethyl hexacyl acrylate, isobutylene. Okay, those are the three. Just the one was really long. Woo! I totally mispronounced those. I'm so sorry, chemists watching this. The acrylate one is a carcinogen which can cause burning and irritation of skin and eyes, coughing, and shortness of breath. And the last one, the isobutylene, It causes dizziness and drowsiness. And it's also where we get another. Oh, okay, we're back. Sil Gagliano, I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sure. He's begun to be interviewed by a lot of local news reporters in Eastern Ohio. He's former fire chief for Youngstown, Ohio, and is reportedly a chemical expert. He puts down this quote and basically says, "We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open." Take that as you will. And from there, most of the news that I've been going through is just more restating what I've already stated. We get to February 13th. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources estimate 3,500 fish have died as a result of the train wreck. And then we also get into reports of other train wrecks happening the same day, February 13th. Truck hit a train near Houston, Texas. That was a Union Pacific train. And the same day, a CSX train derailed in Norris, South Carolina. But these occurred several days after the East Palestine wreck. And that brings us up here to today, February 15th. There's a town hall meeting going on right now in East Palestine, started at 7 p.m. The only reason I know about this is that one of Ohio's Republican representatives essentially challenged the director of transportation, Pete Buttigieg, to show up to the town hall meeting. We'll see where that goes from there. That's my timeline of events. It's not perfect, and I'm not saying take my word. Please go out and do your own research. But I've heard a lot of speculation relating to this wreck, and a lot of it just did not sink in with the timeline. So I want to be able to thoroughly put out, at least according to the news reports, what the timeline is. So keep in mind, this is what's officially being reported. This is an active situation, even though it's 2 weeks in. And somebody put it best that you're probably not going to know the ramifications of this for 5, 10, 20 years, especially when you're dealing with chemical exposure. Connection. I actually might still be live when it... Okay, we're back. That statistic of 3,500 fish dying, that alarms me. It's fish, but that's showing you the chemicals clearly are in the water system in some capacity, at least in my eyes. And another article I was reading, and I didn't have time to put in the official research, so I'll just mention it briefly. What they're calling the pollution plume from the wreck that seeped into the groundwater is presently in the Ohio River, moving at approximately a mile per hour. So keep that in mind. At this time, I think it's just past Huntington, West Virginia, and around that vicinity. Apparently, and I didn't even know about this, Governor Justice of West Virginia last week apparently advised people living in Weirton, West Virginia, which, keep in mind, we're along the Ohio River, we're in the northern panhandle, so wave to Ohio across the way. In Weirton, he had advised them to go to drinking from bottles, to avoid drinking from the town water supply as cautionary measures. So again, this is impacting a tri-state area. It's not isolated to East Palestine. And then we got that letter. Again, highly recommend. Go down, read the letter. It's in the description below from the EPA to Norfolk Southern. That's what alarms me the most. That there's chemicals physically, traces of chemicals underneath the rail bed right now as we speak. What is that going to do to the groundwater of East Palestine? That is what terrifies me. Now, railroad unions have been denouncing the train wreck, and a lot of them are blaming it on precision scheduled railroading. And I actually brought this up I was messaging in a live stream earlier this week about the effects of PSR on the rail system. If you don't know what precision scheduled railroading is, well, you're in for a treat. The best way I can explain it is, for years you would have what would be unit trains. These were trains that would have, let's say you're bringing a train out of a coal mine. It's going to have what? Coppers and nothing but coal. Since it's all one commodity, that's a unit train. You also have what is known as manifest, or I like to affectionately call them mixed freights. There's a mixture of all sorts of cars, bells and whistles being hauled on it. What the railroad companies are saying is the problem is the unit trains, they weren't profiting as much off of them because you would have to wait for a train to build up over time, then take it away. Where the manifest is, hey, this is a crackpot of all sorts of different things. Let's take it and, drop all the designated cars off at different yards along the way. So what PCR essentially is, they're trying to do away with unit trains and make everything a manifest train, but it's not just that. To be more efficient, instead of having free trains, they want to have one train. So slap all free trains together into one train. Because per their logic, then you're doing away with these costly unit trains, but you're also doing away with more employees. Because their idea is, well, if we have free trains smacked into one, we only need one crew to operate it. This is precision scheduled railroading, and it's been causing nuisance on at least the rail lines here in western Pennsylvania. Ever since PCR has been starting to be applied, it is the amount of minor derailments on the horseshoe curve, which is this big fill that allows the Norfolk Southern Main Line to get out of Altoona, Pennsylvania, their rail shops, and get up onto Allegheny Mountain. And I have a video about that on the channel. Go check out my retracing history in the horseshoe curve to learn all about that. Anyways, it seems like 2 or 3 times a year they're dropping trains on the curve, which seems to be more than in prior years. Now, these have been minor derailments, but they've been talked about regularly in the local rail fan community. And PSR is blamed for a lot of it because how they're loading these trains, they're being calculated by a computer essentially. The geography is not dictating the train, the computer's dictating it. So the computer doesn't understand these unique geographies. At least that's my understanding of the situation. PSR is always used as a slur in the rail fan community. So that's what the rail unions are blaming, that this is a culmination of the abuse of PSR on the working staff. Now, news outlets have been blaming the crash on they've been blaming the crash on a removal of a safety rule back in 2017. Essentially, we go back to 2014 during the Obama administration. A rule was passed that was going to affect oil crude trains, that was going to change the mechanics of how they're linked together, the safety measures. And then during the Trump administration, this rule was revoked. My issue of putting blame on the wreck on this issue, this was specified to crude oil trains. This is not a crude oil train that crashed in East Palestine. This is a manifest that included hazardous material. You can I think you can make an argument that maybe we should not have hazardous materials on manifests. Maybe they should just be unit trains and then maybe have speed restrictions or something. I'm no expert. And then, of course, you have the internet with the tinfoil hats going on. We have the weather balloon crisis here in the United States going on the past couple weeks. Weather balloons from China are just appearing left and right. Where are they coming from? Why are they here? And why aren't they being taken down? More at 11. Some are saying that the East Palestine wreck is to distract from these balloons. Other people are saying the balloons and the wreck are to distract from something else being released. I'm going to be honest, like I mentioned earlier about PSR and hearing about the situations in the railroading community, the hardships that have been happening, the layoffs have been happening. That seems to be more likely than anything else, but it is interesting to keep in mind the wreck occurred February 3rd, and nobody really started talking about it until February 13th, almost a week and a half after the situation. I think that the photo of the big plume rising from the controlled burn, that's what got everybody's attention. Not the wreck itself, but the controlled burn. And that's the end of what I have written down. Like I said, folks, I'm no expert. I've only gathered this information over the past 72 hours, picking through things that were adding up and tossing away things that seem inaccurate. And this is all coming from various news reports, coming right out of the EPA, coming from Norfolk Southern's mouth. And this is an active situation. Who knows what this is going to look like in a year, in 5 years, in 20 years. When it comes to handling chemicals, you simply don't know. But I could give a list of environmental situations in the past. We got the Norris smog incident. We got Centralia mine fire. We got the Times Beach situation in Missouri. We have the Love Canal situation in New York. And do I have to expand to the rest of the world? I hope this has cleared up a little bit of what has happened in East Palestine, Ohio. As I can say, I don't think there's much more I can do except keep the people of East Palestine and the surrounding area in your thoughts and prayers. Hopefully things do not turn any worse. Hopefully our fears are proven false. Hopefully we're not proven true. I don't think anybody wants to be proven true that this is going to be a massive environmental disaster, but the way it's looking, but that is for history to decide. So thank you for watching. If you would like me to discuss current events, let me know. I'm very hesitant to touch on them just because it can unnerve anybody and everybody, and Mother Susan does not like it when we talk about current events in a fair manner. Remember that. If you want to support this channel, be sure to subscribe. I primarily do videos on history, industrial history, which is why we're talking about this, military history, and a lot of local history here in Western Pennsylvania. If you want to go the extra mile in supporting me, there's 2 ways to do this. One, you can follow me on Rumble. I do have a Rumble page, and I'm hoping to eventually be able to live stream on both channels. Be really cool. Be in 2 places at once. I want to defy physics. Also, if you want to support me 2 extra miles, I do have a Ko-fi page. The link is in the description below. This is a way to give me a small tip, essentially. It primarily goes to helping me buy a cup of coffee. Well, hopefully next time I talk to you guys, I will have my connection issues sorted. Enjoy your rest of your day. See you guys in the next video I make. Oh, what's happening? I want to stop the live stream. I'm going to stop it now.